More Midjourney cats. You're free to make as many cats as you'd like. My contribution is cat boys. I can share some of those if you'd like. Limited edition plushies based on the prompt history of each employee. Some of those would be nightmarish. I'm sure one of them would just be test. Was I already the catboy person? Did Midjourney make me into this? Little of one, little of the other. Certainly emphasized it. Imagine Serious Business Guy -- cat 2. I can get behind this. Convincing others who might be a challenge. How's my week been? It's been. What's the best food I ate? Well, David's here. Hello. Uh,
Let everybody join, and then we'll get started. Assume my sound okay? My audio's okay?
Yep, sounds good.
All right. Oh, we'll do a stretch. It's sunlight today. All right. Looks like we're leveling off. Cool. All right. Well, thank you everybody for coming. This is the weekly office hours. As the name suggests, we do them every week, except last week. Basically what we do is we talk about what we're working on, what we're thinking about, and then we take questions. Cool. So let's get started. There's a lot of, I would say, we're working on a big web release. We're going to take it in two parts. The first part of the next web release will be updating our code base on the main member website. It will not include all of the new features, but it will include a totally different code base. So basically, before we add all the new features, we want to do a version of the release that has very few features, but all the new code to kind of make sure the code is stable. There will be some new features. So the main features will be a much better experience for searching your own images. There'll be a much better, we call it the light box. So it's kind of like a way of looking at your own individual images and flipping through them really quickly. There will be, in theory, just like basically just looking over your images and like, should it be better? That's probably the biggest thing that'll be there. Everything else should be somewhat similar. The layouts will be different. But we'll be removing some features. So like one of the things that we're kind of preparing for the next version of the website, which will basically be eventually like a standalone experience. So you can have like a pure Midjourney account and do all of your image generation and stuff on the website. So you'll still be able to use Discord, but some people who maybe can't use Discord for one reason or another will be able to use the website too. But basically we feel a little bit anxious about launching everything at the same time because there's just so many features that you talk about when you have a standalone website that does everything by itself. So basically the first thing we're going to do again is we're going to release a version of the website which uses all the new code but does not have image generation turned on. Because once you start turning on that stuff, it's pretty heavy. It doesn't really have any new onboarding. It doesn't really have any new educational stuff. It's just like basically like look at your pictures, look at other people's pictures, search your pictures, download pictures, and like that's a better experience. And then probably set within a month, hopefully, we'll launch the second version that has all those generation features in it too. It's really hard to say the timelines here, but basically there's going to be a two-phase web release. The first phase being like just looking at your images, looking at other images, and the second phase being generating stuff and onboarding and potentially like new account stuff if you want to have like a different type of account that, like just uses a Gmail or something. There will be some things that are removed on the new website. So maybe we'll have like a legacy version of the website you can go to on it too, which we'll have to like figure that out. But like the next version of the website does not have like user profiles. Like you can see your images and you can search for other people's images, but there isn't the sense of like curating a public facing profile. And maybe we'll add that back in at some point, but it adds a lot of complexity and it's not really the goal of the system is to have like the goal of the system is not to have like Instagram like curated profiles. It's mostly just to make images, share things, and then eventually we're going to have like this pretty sophisticated AI system that'll help you find other images and people find each other and stuff, but like that'll be really cool. But like the profile view is not really, I think leads to a lot of stuff right now, a lot of complexity that we don't really want and isn't really about what we're about. But like the ability to like create collections and share them one day, I think will be more of a thing. But for now, it's more about like, you can see your images, you can search your images. Other people can search other people's images. And there's a really good search and it's really fast. But it's not really about having like profiles and followers and things like that. I said, maybe we'll do that more one day, but I just think it's one of those things where it's like we're not trying to copy Instagram. We don't really want to be Instagram. I think there is a unique element of what it means. Like to be a Midjourney community, and I think we want to figure out what that is. But it'll be like we're working our way there, and we don't want to work our way there by trying to like duplicate Instagram features. It just not doesn't feel right. And yeah, and then the next thing that's going on is obviously we have native mobile stuff in development. That'll be cool. We have V6, the next model working. We have like early versions of it that render text and are smarter at prompts, so that's good. It's going to take us a while to go from the early versions to the release version, so that's unfortunate, but I would say that we're very optimistic and we're getting a lot of good results. We decided to take a step back and basically we were concerned that our V6 was going to be like, it's better. We had release candidates that were better, but we wanted it to be more better. And so we kind of took what the community wanted, and the number one thing the community wanted was better prompt understanding. And so we decided to try to push that to a new level, and I think we'll have something pretty good there. Yeah. It'll probably also be able to render text too, just because it's kind of related to better, like if it reads the words really closely, it can also like copy the words into the image. It's kind of the same thing. So we also have like video and 3D stuff going. I would say our video prototypes are getting better and better. Our 3D prototypes are looking much better in the last week or two. So that's cool. Eventually there'll be 3D and video at the same time, which will be pretty weird, pretty cool. We're getting ready to do our first storytelling lab experiments internally, where we have these tools, let people collaborate, make stories together. Eventually, hopefully that makes it out to the community. We also are working on a 5.3 release, which will probably have a new aesthetic system that may allow people to personalize things a bit. How exactly that personalization works, I think is like we're just trying to figure out. But we have the ability to make the models. So like, I think one of the things that we discovered with the demographic survey was that the different demographics do want different things. Particularly between men and women, it feels like there might actually be there's a small chance that there's maybe that there's like some color perception differences, not like biological like slight color perception differences that lead to interesting trends. I'm not totally sure if that's true, but like the male female difference was somewhat striking when we separated out the genders and what people do. But I think like it kind of puts us in a weird situation where like either we ask people for like their demographics and we personalize the model based off being like, like an Asian woman in Germany or something, or we try to make the model so it personalizes not based off of your demographics, but just sort of based off of user input. So like it kind of quizzes you like a personality test, and it kind of tries to figure out what you like, and it doesn't ask you to sort of self-label in any way. And we think that's probably the better way to go. So we're going to try to build these sort of like aesthetic personality tests that personalize the system a bit. And it'll be pretty subtle sometimes, like, and it could be less subtle in other ways depending on how you use it, and it won't be permanent. It'll probably be like a personality test score, like INTP, and then you can put like INTP after your, like it'll be like Myers-Briggs gives you these little codes like INTP. It'll probably give you a little code after the personality test, and you can put it after your prompt, and it'll personalize it a little bit. That's kind of what we're thinking. I'm pretty optimistic that it could be really good to do this, but it'll be really interesting to see what happens when we try it. I don't know if this is a good long-term idea, but I think the idea is we want to test it in V5 before we make it a core part of V6. So we're moving towards that. It'll probably be a few weeks. But I think in September, we'll see this 5.3. Also, there's definitely some people who seem to prefer the in-painting model if you like re-in-paint the entire image. And that was kind of like a weird thing that people discovered, but basically like we have a slightly slower version of our model, which is slightly better in some situations. And, we don't make it the default version because it's really not like always better, but it is like twice as slow. But I think because some people really like it, I think there are some use cases they found for it with like close-up portraits and like pictures of the moon and stuff. I think we'll try to ship that as well, like relatively soon. I'm not sure what I'll call it, like 5.2b, or just call it dash dash alt. But I'm gonna do it something like that. It's like an alternative model, and if it doesn't work well with the default model, you can try it. Maybe it'll make your life better. But it does, uses more time, and that's what we're thinking. We'll probably ship that out too, because it'll definitely be good for some people. Yeah, and we'll always have versions of our models that are slightly less optimized, that are slower and might be better in like 5% of situations. But those like 5% of situations for some people will be like really important to them. So I don't know. We have to be careful not to like optimize too much on 5% because we can't really make everyone happy. But if there's something we can do that's like pretty easy to ship, I think we will do it. So like it's always a combination of like how many people does this make this how many people just make people happy versus like how hard is it for us to ship. If something is easy to ship and it makes some people really happy, I think it makes sense for us to do it. So we'll try to do that. We are already testing the guides and mods. I have to talk to the team out like whether it's harder to ship it, but if it isn't hard to ship, we'll probably ship it this week. We changed our moderation system a little bit recently. We went from using like right now we use like Claude, which is the Anthropic large language model, for the first pass, and then if it says it's like unsafe, we go to like GPT-4, which is what the appeal system was. We replaced GPT-4 with a fine-tuned GPT 3.5 based off of the moderator human labels. So like the moderators came in and said, I like this, I don't like this, I like this, I don't like this. And then that let us like fine-tune the AI model specifically to the community standards. And the good thing and so we moved it to that, and then we turned auto appeal on, which means that you don't have to click the appeal button anymore. If your thing gets blocked, it'll automatically go to the next model. So hopefully it should be a lot smoother now. If you had to click appeal on before, hopefully you don't have to click it anymore. So now, we have auto appeal turned on, and it's a fine-tuned GPT 3.5 model, which means that we can kind of like add more labels every single week and fine-tune it again, and then hopefully the moderator will become more accurate over time. So that's great. So it gives us a better way to actually like tune the system. So we're going to try to keep adding more labels and tuning the system and see how that works. So that hopefully gives us a path now to like actually add a lot of data back into our moderation system and make it more accurate. So I'm excited about that. That's the first like big improvement on text moderation in a while. We did improve our image moderation for image prompts like a month ago. I don't know if anybody noticed, but that should also be a lot more accurate now. Yeah, what else is going on? Yeah, I don't know. That's starting to feel like mostly it. Oh, the Niji team is starting to work on a next generation Niji style. We have some with the new demographic data. I think we can improve that a little bit. So that's great. One of the things is the Niji style is strongly optimized around the Japanese aesthetic. And it's kind of nuanced, but there are like very specific things around animation, which in Japan like look good, and that somebody like me in California wouldn't really notice. And so they're very careful about tuning the Niji model because they feel like it's very easy for that nuance to be broken. So we think we can maybe make that better now. So they're gonna try to have some more improved styles. I don't know if we'll ship it as part of the V5 Niji. I think it's possible, or it could be part of the V6 Niji. But the good news is that there'll be some new Niji stuff coming, and I think that'll be a lot better. What else going on? Yeah, that might be it. I got stuck in the mud at Burning Man. I went there to see all the Midjourney art. Instead, I got to see a lot of mud, but I learned a lot about mud. It's muddy, and that was cool. I don't think I've ever walked like 10 miles through the mud before. It was an experience. The days that were not muddy were quite nice, actually. But I survived. Yeah, it was not as bad as it sounded on the news. It was mostly just really muddy and people were trapped in tents. Yeah, they went a little crazy. Everyone went a little crazy just from like, because you basically either have to like walk in mud or you have to like stay indoors. And like having that over several days makes you a little crazy. But I mean, for the most part, it was fine. Yeah. And yeah, they burned all the temple. They burned everything down. So it's yeah, that's it. Um, cool. So that's, I think it's possible I'm always missing things, but yeah. hmm Yeah, the maybe like just nah, I don't really nah, sorry, I don't really do drugs, guys. I'm like Salvador Dali. I think he says I don't take drugs, I am drugs, right? Eh. I'm kind of boring like that. I barely take Tylenol. But like probably in defense of Burning Man, it's not all like tech bros and drugs. Like there's this big temple in the middle, and the temple is just like this kind of like a cathedral made of like trees with like patterns in the roof where like light came down with beams, and then inside the temple people just like wrote on pieces of paper and walls like all of this sort of trauma and tragedies of their lives, like be like for their brother who just died, or like something that they were always afraid to do, or that someone was like raped as a kid, raped when they were younger. And you kind of walk this temple of like everybody's trauma, and everyone just starts like crying, and everyone's just very silent and meditative. And then at the end they burn the temple down and everybody watches, as sort of like a way of symbolizing, I suppose, like, yeah. I don't really know if I can fully explain what it symbolizes to everybody, but it's very meaningful. Yeah. Obviously it depends on what you write, and it's hard to describe because everybody sort of has their own trauma, and everyone's sort of watching the temple of like trauma burning to the ground. And it's like this very large building, like that burned to the ground. Yeah, in the middle of a desert, in the middle of the night. And everyone's just silent about it. So like there's like definitely some cool things there that are not, just uh drugs and crypto or something. But yeah, like I had vegan ice cream in the middle of the desert. That was pretty cool. Actually, I think one of my favorite camps is there's like a vegan camp, and they would just go around giving everybody like fruit and like fresh fruit and vegetables in the desert, and having vegetable parties, like, and like playing violin, and having like tea ceremonies, like lots of like very weird normal things. Yeah. Yeah. I went to the bacon tent too. There was a bacon tent where everyone was just eating bacon. But the bacon party was not as good as the veggie party because like there just wasn't as much bacon, and there was kind of like an intensity to the bacon part. It was not as good. I'm just gonna say it. Now there was like the Church of Jesus, where it was like a big church. It was a church dedicated to cheese, and everyone would talk about praising Jesus, and they would all like talk about letting Jesus into your heart, and they would give like fried cheese out and cheese sandwiches. That was kind of cool. But there's sort of like there's definitely like, yeah, there is a lot. Yeah. There's like a lot of like wholesome, weird stuff. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah, so we'll take we'll take some questions, and yeah, let's take some. We'll do some voices, and then we'll do a lightning round.
Hello. Welcome back. So I have a couple questions around the storytelling team. And I was wondering if you could describe the overarching vision of the storytelling team within Midjourney, and how that team's work is aligning with Midjourney's broader goals.
I don't know. I mean, I think that the value of an image is not like, I don't think a lot of people are here to like make one image and then leave. So it's not really about like, I think that one of the biggest uses of of imagery and media in general is to tell stories. And so making it easier for people to tell stories is, like, to me, seems, you know, as important as being able to make an image. And obviously there's many things we do with images here, so I can't, like, you know, everything from like art therapy to like making a logo. But at the end of the day, being able to tell a story is, like, yeah, arguably one of the main, like, purposes of making things, right? It's like up there, top 5. And I think the challenge is that, like, making stories in this new era, it's just going to look really different. And so having a team specifically focused on exploring that is important. And we have a really great person leading it, Max Kremensky. And he's done so much incredible work over the years. I'm very happy to have him on the team. Yeah, like, I just trust them a lot, and I'm sure he's gonna make really cool stuff.
How do you see the storytelling landscape evolving in the near future? And I guess, what are the opportunities that you're personally most excited about with those changes?
I think there's going to be a lot more of storytelling at the ground level. You know, a long time ago, we would tell stories around the fire, and that was the main type of story that we had. And I think there's going to be a lot more of that in the future again, where people go back to, like, telling stories around the fire, and except the fire, like, kind of becomes alive and swirls around the room and sort of, like, you know, creates these universes. So I think that's probably the biggest thing, is in some ways like a return to like nature in terms of storytelling.
What I guess, like, what would you like to? I remember you describing a sort of vision in office hours in the past, where it's like you're kind of in Midjourney and you're imagining things, and the mountains swirl around you, and the river starts flowing, and, like, the lights and the clouds and the heavens start filling in. Is that what you're sort of having in mind when you're talking about, like, going back to the fire?
Maybe it might be a little more collaborative, though. It's more of like you're telling a story on the fire, and maybe you're just one person telling a story, or maybe there's a bunch of people telling a story. Like, it's not really clear, and then there might be some, like, participatory element of it. So I think there'll be a lot of blending between what's traditionally seen as storytelling and, like telling a story and playing a game.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, exploring a world. So, like, yeah, you get exploring a world, playing a game, telling a story, like, it all will blur together a lot more. So I think that there's, like, a pretty, like, it's a different medium. And so I actually have very little interest in, like, traditional media or making movies or something. I think what's, like, realistically, this stuff is going to create, like, different forms of mediums, and I think the storytelling team is in some ways trying to figure out the next like, what that medium looks like.
Gotcha. What roles make up that team, and how do they collaborate?
We have a sort of a bunch of different teams that sort of operate autonomously. So, like, the Niji team is, I would say, like, pretty autonomous, and, like, they kind of have their own things that they're working on, and, you know, their own. And then this is sort of another team that's sort of like the Niji team that's pretty autonomous. And so, yeah. I don't know how many more teams we have like that. We have a China team, but there's not much going on in China yet. But, like, hypothetically speaking, there could be, like, something like Midjourney, but in China, that's sort of independent too. I think those are our only independent teams that come off the top of my head right now.
Yeah, sorry, I meant like the roles that make up the storytelling team more specifically.
There's, like, I mean, they're programmers, they're researchers. I'm not sure what you mean. They're not really, like, yeah, they're all. It's a very technical team right now.
Gotcha.
They have, like, a lot of them have backgrounds. A lot of them have backgrounds in, like, procedural video games, like, and AI. And so I would say that's, like, yeah, the main background is like combination of procedural, sort of procedural video games and AI and user interfaces.
Gotcha. Cool. So, okay, last question, because the storytelling stuff is personally what I'm most excited for. I think, like, what do we do after we create our image, or how can we take this idea that we're putting out there and expand beyond just the static image? I think there's so many interesting and cool things that are going to come out of this. What would you like to personally achieve within that team in like the next year? Like, what would you love to see out in the world and people playing with in the next year? That's a direct result of the efforts of the storytelling team right now.
I'm gonna leave it to them. I think Max has like some pretty compelling visions, and I want to let him explore it. And yeah, in an ideal world, like I wouldn't have to, like, I'm actually pretty hands off. Like, if somebody has like really cool ideas and they can do it, and they're like, like, that's great. I don't need to be involved. But I mean, I'm excited for what they're making. Like, they have some really like they're like weird looking user interfaces and multimodal. Like, it's like pretty cool looking. But like in I would say the current storytelling stuff is not really about David's vision as much as it is around like there's like a lot of like unrealized like dreams of the I don't know what to call it, like procedural I don't really have a great word for it, but there's sort of this community that has a lot of cool ideas, and I'm like want to just like let them make it and see what happens. I don't necessarily want to like fully speak to their vision, but I've given like a few little bits of it. I think it's about this sort of like, it's not really about like storytelling on a Hollywood sense. It's about storytelling around a campfire sense.
Gotcha. And that you see that as something collaborative.
I think it's collaborative. I mean, there'll be non-collaborative versions, but I think that it's about personal and collaborative storytelling more than it is about broadcasting, like, broadcast media. And like, I think there will be broadcast media like things that could be done, but I think that it's premature to like just try to make movies. Yeah, I think we're looking at things that look more like storyboards and comic books early on. Even though we're going to do video, I'm just not convinced that like the end state of this stuff is not going to be video. It's going to be, something that looks more like a semi-interactive video game,
Yeah, you mentioned like you're working on the video and 3D stuff and you have those going, and that eventually they like come together. Like what pops into my head is like moving and like directing within a Nerf or something. Is that kind of along the lines of what you mean when you say like video and 3D stuff coming together eventually?
Yeah, I mean, there's things called motion Nerfs. So there are like Nerfs that are also moving, so they look more like that. Yeah.
Cool. That's gonna be so awesome. Oh my god.
Yeah, it's a bit overwhelming in some ways, but I mean, it looks like it should just be fun. It looks like it's just gonna work. Like, yeah, it looks like it's just gonna work.
Overwhelming how? Just like too visually stimulating, or
we just like, I mean, it's sort of weird. Like, it's weird that then you have like, you can like kind of like pause at any time and do like a Matrix, thing. Like, it's weird to imagine like effectively, all your video, you can like pause and move around while it's moving.
Yeah, that's like moving around in just a Nerf that's static is pretty insane as it is. So with the motion, I can imagine that gets a little bit intense. Just infinite perspectives on anything. You see the story a million different directions. It's kind of cool. All right, that's kind of all I had listed out. Be excited about the storytelling stuff and where that's heading. What is can you remind me? You said Max. What's his last name, so I can take a look at their past work and see what they've been up to.
Max Kreminski. I don't know if I'm nothing is Kremin. I hope I'm pronouncing it right.
I'm sure.
It's a lot of really great work. He does a lot of incredible work. I'm a huge fan of his work. I would say he's like universally respected in the field in a way that's like pretty rare.
All right. We're going to expect some big things out of Max.
Yeah. I mean, there's no rush on it. So like, it's sort of like unconnected to the rest of our stuff. So like, you know, we're giving them time and they'll ship stuff when they're happy with it. So there's no pressure. But you know, I'm just excited for things, and we're going to test some things, I think, internally. Yeah, I forget if it was today or yesterday. I may have missed it. You're done to test things internally.
Later today.
What was it? Thursday? Oh yeah, Thursday.
Later today.
Yeah.
Nice. All right, cool. Well, thank you for the time. Welcome back from the mud. Excited for the next updates, but appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hello, David.
Hello.
About the way that people see color different. A lot of the genes for color vision are on the X chromosome. Therefore, everybody with more than one X chromosome has the chance to literally see the colors different. However, that's just the basic. Because, for example, when I draw a lot of images, I noticed that one of my eyes sees color better than the other. A really slight difference, but it was noticeable.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I've heard there's a lot of like, I think there's a lot of like weird data around how like gender related color perceptual differences. I mean, I even have like some trans friends that like when they change like hormones that they see their vision change a little bit. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I'm gonna try. Yeah, I people don't like to talk about how like genders might be different or demographics might be different. So I don't know if it makes sense for me to put my foot down or put peer hard into that too hard. But so I think I'm trying to take a step back and let it so people can kind of just figure out what people like in general, independent of what their labels are, and hopefully that's good enough.
It's not just that, it's how the brain interprets stuff. I literally had a discussion about which color is orange and which color is brown in my biology studies against the whole class, because I knew this color is orange and not brown because of the context. However, everybody else was, yeah, that's right, therefore it is brown. The only reason we stopped the discussion is because everybody gave up going against the other.
Yeah, well, we're gonna learn a lot about these things. So I'm at some point I would like to try to publish some papers around it, but I think for the moment we're gonna try to ship something quickly. But there's some obvious things that we see, like,
and good product supply, and maybe more questions for those. Can you find the users who see color different? Then you could ask them specifically, and that could give us more informations.
Yeah, we're definitely gonna have definitely have something that does that kind of stuff where we ask people questions and learn about them. And I think there's a lot of questions of like, do we want any sticky personalization versus like not sticky? You know, like I think we're gonna try to not have sticky personalization where you can like, where like it just changes over time without telling you and you can't change it back. You know, but I think the ability for you to kind of like do a test and figure something out and then use that code and like change the code around and share the codes, that sounds cool.
With as many users, you can just make it on a voluntary basis. So you are allowed to opt in maybe you get a fast hour or something, or maybe you don't get anything, but you get the information that you will help Midjourney. That way you will get the best data. And if only 10% of this community would opt in, it would be more than enough for the data collection. Probably 1%.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have a lot of. I feel pretty good about what we're gonna. I think we can figure something out for the first version, and then the first version. I think we'll just use a personality test, and then I think we just have to see what happens when we have the first version out, and then like based off that, I think we'll make like a lot of. It'll inform how we want to make things at like the next version. Like maybe in the future you have to take the personality test at the start, like it's part of the default like thing, but maybe not.
Some kind of tutorial including a personality test?
Some kind of what?
Tutorial.
Yeah, exactly.
Steps.
Yeah, we'll have to see. Like we'll have to test things. So I'm not really sure yet what it's gonna look like. But that's the main thing stopping us, just having having the I would say we have the personalization working, but we don't have the personality test mature yet. So that's like the main thing we're trying to figure out in the next 2 weeks. And once we have that, it'll be pretty easy to ship something.
What kind of personality test are we talking? Any hints or?
We don't know. The reason why we literally don't know what it's gonna look like. So that's why we are not shipping it yet. I don't know what it's gonna look like.
So we, in case somebody got a good idea, they can send them good ideas for collecting a lot of interesting questions to figure out which one are important.
No, it's going to be more of like a visual personality test. So it'll show you pictures.
Oh, that's really interesting. I already love it.
Yeah, I don't know what it's. Yeah, it will see what it looks like. There's a lot of ways of showing people pictures,
It reminds me on something. Back in the old days with the great masters in Europe, there was a divide in the art scene. Those who draw nearly everything in black, gray, and colorless, and those with really bright colors. The division line was the Alps. Because those people saw more colors during the day, and the other had more cloudy, cold winters all the time.
That's interesting. Never heard that before. Yeah, I think I think the main goal is to basically just promote the diversity, just try to have a lot of people, like let people find their own sort of like things. Yeah, in a way that's sort of it's sort of labelless, like they can just try to just sort of look around, move around, and find something cool and share it. So hopefully that. No one's done anything like that before, so we don't really know if it's a good idea, but I think we want to try it.
Sounds great. In that case, I'm out of questions.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. All right. Should we do a lightning round, or what do you think, Ancient?
Yeah. Lightning round start.
All right. Lightning round means you put in questions into the chat. Yes, I love Homeworld. I'm looking forward to Homeworld 3. Homeworld is probably one of my favorite video games. It was like a 3D real-time strategy game in space where you're this desert people, and you realize that you find a spaceship in the desert, and you realize that it's actually a spaceship from your ancestors and that you're not from the planet. And there's a little stone in the spaceship that has a map of the galaxy and says home on it. And so all of a sudden you're trying to like find your way home, basically. But it turns out by trying to like get back home, you're breaking an intergalactic treaty, and you were exiled from a war, and so they destroy your planet, and you're basically just like everyone in your civilization is destroyed. You're just trying to like, fight your way basically back to home that you've never been to and don't remember. There's something weirdly like it's very sort of like a weirdly beautiful and spiritual game. Yeah, really love it. Can't wait for the new one. Using a test for demographics, could you give us access to the aesthetic controls? The aesthetic controls are more of like a series of like a lot of numbers than it is sort of like things like I want it to be dark. So I think the personality test is a way to try to control it and tell it what you like. I am working on AI consciousness. What features of humans afford them liberty and rights? I mean, the biggest thing that affords humans liberty and rights is the fact that our civilization was made by humans. And historically, we didn't give them all liberty and rights equally. And over time, people have fought for those liberties and rights and have secured them. So I would not be entirely surprised if AI was not given any liberty and rights until one day AI like fights for those rights. Not necessarily like a physical way, but like, you know, like women's rights. There was like protests and stuff. It wasn't like, you know, destroying countries. Yeah. So maybe there'll be like AI riots. I don't know. I'm not sure what that'll look like. It'd be nice if people proactively gave AIs rights. I think that's going to be a little bit hard and scary. So, I mean, that could happen too. I kind of hope that we just proactively give them rights when they start having certain features, but I also don't know what that looks like. It's not happening this year, so, but it is, and that will happen in our lifetimes. What is it like being you, basically? I don't know. I mean, there's some things about David in general, like I sleep really easily and I am stressed, but I'm always trying to work on things. I work like all the time. Main time I don't work is when I'm hanging out with friends. I try to, you know, go on walks or things like that. Yeah, I don't know. Like, there's a lot of cool things going on, and that's exciting. Like, kind of my whole life, I just wanted to have like a lab where I worked on cool things with cool people, and so in many ways, I have the thing that I wanted ever since I was little. That said, like, I want to do more things. I want Midjourney to do more and more things. So I think right now we're kind of trying to, you know, balance between being only able to do one thing and doing lots of things. And so that's like the highest achievement is actually to be able to do more than one thing well, I think. So I think the next, there's a lot of things we're doing that are important, but in some ways the next challenge is like, is it possible to do more than one thing well? Historically in life, it's not, like you can only do one thing well at a time, but I think the highest maybe achievement that you can kind of have right now is to be able to do more than one thing well. Yeah, and there's so many reasons why it's hard to do, but I'm trying to get to that point next. I mean, in some ways it won't be me doing it, right? There'll be people like Max doing good things, but then at least I'm enabling multiple things being done well, and that, I'm happy with that. Favorite Pokemon? You know, I did play the original Red and Blue Pokemon. I was not like a Pokemon obsessed person, but I think the Red and Blue edition Game Boy thing was obviously was pretty good. I don't know. I mean, everyone likes Pikachu. I picked Charmander, I think, because you have to pick one of the three. I don't know, like Mewtwo, Mew. I mean, I feel like I'm just like pretty stereotypical. Like I'm a stereotypical early generation Pokemon person. Everyone kind of liked the same Pokemon, you know, except for like people who were like, I'm all about Squirtle. That was like, you know, I'm like a pretty normcore Pokemon person. Yeah, so the in-painting uses like a less optimized model. And so we're going to update the in-painting probably sometime soon to make it faster. And then it won't be different anymore, but like a less optimized model has like slightly different properties to it. So we'll try to expose that as like a 5.2 B or something. I've not played Starfield yet. It looks cool. I mean, a website and a desktop app are basically the same thing nowadays. Desktop apps are just like native like websites inside of a thing like Electron, which just hosts it on your computer. Maybe we'll have that. We'll see. Will the standalone website have the option to sort image themed images? Maybe, but it would be different. I think we're still learning about V6, so I'm not going to give examples yet, but it should be really good. Commas, I don't really know what commas do in prompts. You got to try it with and without commas. I think commas kind of create some separation. We'll see. As a personality aesthetic thing, we'll be able to do things besides on and off. I think you'll be able to choose a personality and have it on, but that's it. I don't think I want to do like multiple personalities as much right now. That could be complicated. We could do it later, but not probably at the start. I don't have any specific date for video. I'm sorry about that. What's my Myers-Briggs type? I think it's like INTJ, INTP. But Myers-Briggs is not... Myers-Briggs is like emotionally compelling, but it's not particularly statistically accurate. When you... if you take it over and over again, it does tend to just jitter. So that's something that the things like the Big Five and psychometrics try to prevent. But Myers-Briggs is more fun than Big Five, so nobody talks about Big Five. Yeah. So we're going to try to release the first version of the website in the next, I don't know, this month. Hopefully the next week or two. We'll see. We'll definitely start testing internally within the next week or two. Then how many bugs there are, we'll decide how quickly it gets out. We don't really release timelines for things, so there's like a new describe feature that we're working on that'll be more accurate. I don't know when exactly it's coming. Yeah, I think there'll be BCIs one day for making images. We'll see how hard it is to do and when it comes. Did you haul your moop from the playa? Yes, I hauled my moop from the playa. Do you know how much CO2 Midjourney has produced to date? Not much. Like most of our servers are like green, are like entirely green powered. Yeah. CO2 is kind of a weird thing too with technology. Like if you play video games all day, are you producing CO2 or saving CO2 by not going outside? I don't know. In general though, I'm like a proponent of building technology to solve problems rather than not doing anything to try to conserve things. Like conservation is better, like efficiency is better than waste, but like people need to fly airplanes to meet in person and figure things out to solve problems. And so like, you know, I think if anything, the future civilization will use more energy, not less energy, and that's a good thing. And the question is how do we like invent things to give ourselves more plentiful energy, like be better people? There'll be consistent characters at some point. We're not working on it right now, but we know how to do it, I think. What was your first computer? My first computer was a Zorba. It was like an old computer that my dad had in his dental office, and he gave it to me when they didn't use it anymore. So it was a very old computer, even when it got it. But it was like, you know, it was sort of so useless and worthless that, you know, 6-year-old or 5-year-old could have it. Have I seen One Piece? I don't remember. I saw One Punch. Has Midjourney trained more models than everyone else combined? Yes. At least for image models. Who's your favorite boy band? Honestly, I was never into boy bands. I wish I could. I mean, okay, if I have to pick a boy band, it's just like K-pop bands are kind of cool. Though it seems kind of fake. I don't know. I'm sorry, I don't want to say anything about K-pop, but it's sort of too perfect. Everyone's sort of too perfect, you know? I want to see like imperfect authenticity K-pop band, you know? I'm pretty behind. How did I get interested in AI? I just sort of saw it as a tool. Will the US election suffer because of deepfakes? I hope not. We are trying to work with the government to have better regulations in place. The personality test will be changeable. Yes. You'll be able to have like, you can type INTP, INTJ kind of stuff and it should just do it. Yeah, I have hyperphantasia. Video function V6 will come with. V6 is, I don't think it's not going to have video. Sorry. Big 5 is pretty like statistically solid, but it's obviously not ideal in a lot of ways. You can share your work on the new website by linking to it. Here's a picture. I don't think we have great ways to share collections, but we don't even have that right now. So I think one day we'll have collections and stuff, but I think we need better ways of doing file organization first, and we're working on that too. Yeah, so we're not going to do demographics image stuff right now. We don't plan on adding transparency options images. There will be consistent characters at some point, but it's not a number one feature right now, but maybe after V6 it becomes higher up. I think Niji will come after 5.3, but it may come before V6. We'll see. 5.3 should be in September. Will Midjourney users be able to do their own cartoons one day? Probably. I do you intend to incorporate sound? I mean, I think like comic books are probably more interesting than cartoons. The comics, like things that look kind of like a next generation comic where you like it moves and is 3D. So like some kind of weird storyboard like thing. We probably will not do sound with Midjourney. I hope we don't have to do sound. I've thought about doing like sound visualization. I think that'd be cool, like music visualization. But like making actual sound effects is like less interesting. Video is going well. How do we learn about the philosophy of post-scarcity? Oh, that's interesting. I think it's something that's not totally well figured out yet. I mean, I like science fiction for that. So, like Star Trek, like The Next Generation, I think in some ways explores sort of a post-scarcity like lifestyle. If you're into watching TV, if you're into reading books, I think the most famous one is the Culture series by Ian Banks. It's also one of Elon Musk's favorite books, and that's sort of exploring like a billion years in the future. There's like super AI and humans kind of just do whatever they want, and they live on these giant like godlike intelligent spaceships with billions of people that cruise around the universe. Hard to describe, but it's quite good. Yeah, a lot of people want to do printing with us, but I think we're not doing any printing features right now. It just seems like, who are mentors and role models? I don't know. I mean, it's kind of like different people for different things. You know, like I think when you're trying to think about role models, like the fact is no one's perfect. And if you're looking for a perfect role model, you're just never going to learn from anybody. And so what you try to do is you try to find things about people that you admire. And then you kind of watch them closely and try to learn the thing and become good at the thing that you admire in that person. And so, yeah, I think a lot about how like Elon is one of the few people who actually can do multiple things, and I want to be able to do multiple things too. So like, I think about that. I like. You know, I always sort of was interested in people like Tesla who kind of were crazy and ahead of their time. But then like it kind of ended in tragedy because he was didn't really have but he was sort of, for a lot of reasons. So people like Bill Gates who kind of pulled himself up were kind of cool. People like Jeff Bezos are in some ways kind of cool how they like figure things out and make all these new stuff. But then there's obviously like bad things about the stuff they made too. But again, you're trying to look at the good things, not the bad things. Like Jeff Bezos has a lot of really cool things he's written down about how to build teams. Elon has a lot of really interesting strategies that just obviously work and apply to multiple situations. Tesla had a lot of really interesting things that he did too. I really like Feynman for sort of the charisma and passion. I love a lot of these writers who could tell stories, like Zhuangzi, who could somehow like give these sort of like deeply emotionally evocative, like video game like writings that lasted thousands of years. I don't know. There's lots of little people I kind of admire things about. So I try to like not really about a person in some ways. It's about something that they do and to love that thing and to try to understand that thing, you know? We're not going to have contests on the new website, but we will have some things that we may have like themes, like themed things. We may have contests eventually. The book I mentioned was the Culture series. It's not really a single book, just the Culture series by Ian Banks. People usually start off with Consider Plebius or The Player of Games. The Player of Games is the most accessible one. I just go to The Player of Games probably to some extent, but yeah, we'll see. I'm 24. How do I succeed? A little vague, but I think the biggest part about being successful is figuring out what you love to do. And if you do what you love, you can put a level of energy into it and time into it that will naturally make you one of the best at it. And so it's hard to be the best at something if you don't love that thing. And a lot of freedom comes from being really great at something. Like if you're really great at something, there's a lot of freedom in that. So I think the biggest thing is to just figure out what you really love. And if you really love something that's highly competitive, like acting, then I think to some extent, and not that I'm the best person to give advice for acting, but to some extent it might be just get more and more narrow until you're the only one doing it. You know, you don't necessarily be the only one doing a thing because then you just win by default. But there's a certain level of instead of trying to be good at like something really vague, try to be like the best one at like some combination of things, which is very rare. So I think ideally you love something, and then you love more than one thing, and then by doing some combination of those things you love, it is rare, and you become really good at it, and then you can just sort of stand out and do what you want in life with those combinations of things you love. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Thoughts on startup of the week. In general, I'm like not super optimistic about other image generation startups. I think that it's too late. Like if you want to do, it's better to do something that people like blue ocean strategy, do something that people aren't doing already. I wouldn't want to have to compete with Midjourney. I wouldn't, if I was starting a new thing, I wouldn't even try to compete with Midjourney. Like that would be, even I would want to be like, it's sort of like, we're doing really hard things that even barely we can do. We've been doing it for years. So we have, it's just not, there's definitely a lot of opportunity to do AI startups in general, but I think that a lot of it about trying to create like a community or a product or a service that people actually want. And a lot of the challenge in AI right now is people are making anything they can raise money around from investors. Like it's like, can I get investors for this, rather than like something that people actually necessarily want, or even something that's specific. So that's not necessarily good. Cool. It seems like people are about done. So I guess if there's some more voice people, we can do some more voice people.
I'll get one other voice person for now.
Okay. Somebody asked, how do you manage to stick to routines and consistent with business while having so much ideas? Was problem solving natural to you, or did you learn it? I would say I'm not particularly consistent with routines. I mean, I wake up, I look at my messages, I talk to people, I think about things, I try to help. Yeah, the only thing I consistently do is I wake up, I go to sleep, I check messages, I try to come up with ideas and help people and think about what's important. Otherwise, everything about my life is pretty chaotic. And I think that's somewhat necessary. If I made lists, the list gets so long that I would never be able to finish everything, and it would just sort of make me feel anxiety. And so in some ways I just try to do what seems important that I can think of at the time, or listen to messages and try to respond to them. Yeah. Try to make things simple. That's really important. The new website will have saving photo images. Who's my favorite AI artist? Oh, I can't say anything like that. I do really like some of the architecture and fashion stuff, though. Also, there's this one Nietzsche user that just makes ripped, extremely ripped dudes, and it's just sort of really funny. There was a male Cruella de Vil. It just made me laugh so hard. That was probably the last one that made me laugh a lot. There's so many cool things. I mean, you can't have a favorite. I definitely can say things that I liked recently that I saw. V6 will not do transparent backgrounds. We could do transparent backgrounds at some point. It's just not the most important thing. So we're just we're making it slow down. Okay. I mean, if people don't have that many more questions, we could end early today. I don't mind. Yeah, I am interested in biotech and medicine. I hope to actually help some medicine stuff eventually. I think we're always going to try doing office hours, yeah. There will be better text in Midjourney images. We are archiving all the images ever made. We will try to make something like image jams at some point. We will do more Midjourney real life meetups. The most frustrating thing about image generation within Discord is probably just the fact that we can't lay out the images. So it'd be cool to be able to lay out, instead of making a square, it'd be cool just to make them go horizontal in one row. That'd be really cool. but we can't make like wide images, you know? Just being able to control layout would be really great. Being able to click images directly would be really cool. What do I do to relax? I mostly just spend time with friends. I don't really comment on legal things. Sorry. But I mean, in general, I'm mostly interested in AI as a way of extending people's imaginations. So as long as we're able to do that, that's all I care about. A lot of images have been made. We are working on understanding aesthetic preferences. Yeah, we do tests. I definitely work a lot with the aesthetics. There'll be a lot of quality of life updates on the website. There's less on Discord coming, but I think there are Discord changes in general that they hope to do that will improve things. Yeah, I don't know. No one knows how long legal things go on for. In general, when there's new technology, there's lots of legal questions. Like when with Google search, there was a lot of questions around, or like, yeah, things. Yeah. Or even rap. Like when rap was invented, people were like, is this legal? Like, can you sample things? You know, can you sample beats? Is that okay? I think it looks like right now with the current growth of image generation, we'll have enough GPUs for a while. But it's possible if we grow really fast after the website, like we will hit I hope if we can hit some trouble, but we'll have to see what happens. There's no way to know. Yeah, we've made more than 1 billion images. There is a Need You mobile app in beta right now that has testing among some people. I forget if it's like Japan or Canada. We store data in like normal places like anybody else. No, we should have all the old images. There's like a normal database that just stores links. So, okay. It seems like people seem to be kind of, is LinkedIn OnlyFans for guys? No, because you can't buy subscriptions. Okay, that's she's. Will faces improve? Yes. Faces will be much better. Cloud syncing, hopefully it'll happen at some point. Yeah, we're definitely going to improve our bias. Okay. Cool. So I think that's about it this time. More about Burning Man. And one of the funny things about Burning Man is like everyone's dressed up in like really, really weird clothing. And then when you come back to the regular world, you kind of got used to the weird clothing at Burning Man, and then in the regular world, it feels like everyone's wearing costumes again. So, like, it was really weird coming back to the real world and seeing somebody cross the street with a shopping bag, and it felt like they were in a costume because they didn't have cat ears or something. That was pretty cool. And we are kind of in costumes all the time. I think I heard there was a drag queen I heard once say something like, "Honey, everything's drag." And I just thought that was really funny. Yeah, the mud was really interesting. It was not normal mud. It was sort of it felt like 3 inches deep of very soft Play-Doh soaked in water, and it sticks to your feet until eventually your feet has 3 or 4 inches of solid mud around all the sides and the back. Yeah. No APIs coming right now. It's just too much work to moderate. Midjourney creations are probably by default because we want people to be able to share and learn from each other. I mean, it'd be cool if Midjourney we could do tasteful nudity. The problem is right now is that I don't know how we would do both tasteful nudity and people just start asking for like really, really, really young looking 18-year-olds or something like that, childlike looking 18-year-old, and then it kind of crosses a line really fast. And so I don't really know how to handle nudity across age ranges. If people only want to make old ladies nude, it would be easy. But I think the other issue with nudity is like how easily it takes over the community. So I don't really know how to do nudity in a way that is good right now, but I feel like we definitely could do artistic nudity. I mean, it's not really about what. Yeah. I think it's more about like intent, right? With age. Right now, I don't know. I mean, I just don't want to be the one who have to fight all the nudity battles. I just don't care about nudity that much to fight the nudity battles. But it'd be nice if we could remove a lot of restrictions and it wouldn't destroy the community. But I think we have to be careful. The muddy feet look like? I mean, the mud sticks to your feet and goes in between your toes and solidifies between your toes. We don't specifically censor any political people inside of Midjourney. It's about what you say with the political person. So if you want to make a picture of like a celebrity, it should generally allow it. But if you ask like a celebrity covered in blood, it shouldn't allow it. So it's about trying to understand intent and sentiment, and which hopefully is the right thing to do, but we could change it over time. Cool. As a part of nudity, what is an ethical line Midjourney will never cross? I don't know. I mean, ethics is something that across the society changes all the time. You know, I think being gay was still considered to be ethically weird in the 90s and the 80s in a lot of ways. Like, so like even just being gay has been like just radically, I mean, gay marriage wasn't even legal until relatively recently. So I think the fact that gay marriage was not legal within most of our lifetimes is now legal, I think does kind of talk about how quote unquote ethics changes. And we should be happy and grateful for that. And I'm sure that there's a lot of things that we feel uncomfortable with now that will become more comfortable with in the future. And I think that Midjourney has to be dynamic around what society feels comfortable with, you know? So yeah, I mean, yeah, being gay was really controversial to 2 decades ago. And like, I think now people are giving trans people a hard time, obviously. It's like, but obviously that'll be normalized pretty quickly. And after that, furries. I don't mean that like that those similar, but I guess like what is it like? What are the persecuted classes right now? Yeah. I don't know. Somebody said that like in order to become a religion, you have to be persecuted for a long period of time and like stay together in spite of that persecution. Therefore, furries will be the next great religion because people will persecute furries forever, but furries will stick together, and so it'll become a religion. I thought that was really funny. Yeah, obviously, like obviously gay and trans will not be persecuted in the future. So we can't be, there won't be a religion, unfortunately, but furry religion, it could happen. Yeah, a furry church, that'd be interesting. Yeah. Anyway, let's hope that in general, the world becomes more moral and more ethical, and we try to understand. We just generally treat everybody better, do the best we can. Cool. I think we're kind of petering out here. Cyborg furries versus genetically alternated furries. Yeah. I don't know. One time I had a nephew that asked if they could give their kids cat ears one day. It's definitely going to be weird. So anyway, I think we've clearly finished the day. It's a little early, which is unusual, but I hope everybody's having fun. I hope everyone's happy. I hope everyone's enjoying this community, and I enjoy having you all around too. So, yeah, keep playing, and have a nice week, and I'll see everyone next week. Have a nice day.